you don't get a dopamine hit when you eat broccoli, right? But you do if you eat, something sugary. And so that's really hard because your body does kind of go through these withdrawal symptoms where your body kind of fights back. It's like, hey, where's our drugs? Like we want the high that we've had for the past 4 months. And now, so I was like, hungry, grumpy, moody. The food also, your taste buds adapt and adjust. And so the taste of the food is not as good. And so this is why I think so many people struggle to make a transition to a healthy lifestyle because they've been conditioned to eat these processed foods for so long. And then now all of a sudden it's like, all right, here's your meal plans, eat whole foods. It's like, okay, yeah, we know we're supposed to do that, but it's not exciting. It's not fun. Like your body doesn't respond the same way.
Today's episode is with repeat guest Drew Manning. Drew is a well-known coach, trainer, and New York Times bestselling author of the book Fit to Fat to Fit. Known for his straightforward and empathetic fitness and health coaching, Drew has been featured on The Dr. Oz Show, CNN, Good Morning America, The Tonight Show, and many others. In today's episode, I'm following up with Drew on his Back to Fit journey after gaining over 60 pounds at the end of last year. We chat about Drew's overall approach to losing the weight and dive into specifics on his nutrition, training, as well as the mental and physical hurdles he overcame along the way. It was great to have Drew back on the show, and I know you're going to take a lot away from this episode. So let's get into it with Drew Manning. Welcome back to MetFlex and Chill. This is your host, Rachel Gregory, and I am here with third time repeating guest, Drew Manning. What's up, Drew? How are you?
What's up, Rachel? I'm good. How are you? It's good to be back
I'm
on.
good. Yeah, I'm excited to have you back. In our last episode, which I will link in the show, or we actually had two previous episodes, but the most recent last episode was all about your the start of your fit to fat journey. And we chatted all about kind of the reasoning behind that and all of that. So this episode is going to be all about your back to fit and kind of how you went about it, dive into some specifics and just chat through that. Do you want to, first of all, if anybody listening hasn't heard those previous episodes, do you want to just tell us a little bit about you and maybe just dive into kind of the overall goal for this entire journey? Just a little bit of a recap on that.
Yeah. So we'll start back in 2011 when I did Fit to Fat to Fit for the first time. So that was kind of how I made a name for myself. I was this personal trainer my whole life, and then I decided to become fat on purpose and document that entire journey to gain a better understanding of what it was like to be overweight for the first time in my life. I've always been in shape, never once struggled with my weight. Was an athlete, played football and wrestling growing up, so I was always fit. And then became a personal trainer in 2009. And then I had this crazy idea because I couldn't understand why my clients struggled to just do what seems so easy for me, and that's just eat healthy food and exercise, right? So I went on this little journey, 6 months of no exercise and a unrestricted diet, and I put on 75 pounds in 6 months. And it was one of the hardest, most humbling things I've ever done. I just realized how wrong I was in my approach to helping people with, trying to transform their bodies. And this journey really truly humbled me. And then that's where this story went viral. Fit to Fat to Fit. This trainer becomes obese on purpose, went on Dr. Oz and Jay Leno and Good Morning America and wrote a book. And the book became a TV show. And eventually, I did get back to fit. It took me 6 months to lose that weight. And then since then, I've kind of, I created this brand of Fit to Fat to Fit, which is really about trying to bring more empathy to the fitness industry and a better understanding on the mental and emotional side of transformation. And that's what I learned from that first experiment. Fast forward to, when we did the second episode, I decided to do that crazy experiment again, but as a 40-year-old with a few twists and turns. I'm in a different place in my life, and I really wanted to do it a second time as a 40-year-old because that age group, I think, really struggles with, just kind of giving up on themselves and thinking, oh, I'm 40, it's harder, my metabolism's changing, my hormones have changed, and now it's just so much harder. And I agree with that, but I wanted to show people it's still possible. And then I really wanted to do it again because not a lot of people saw the journey. Back in 2011, social media wasn't really what it is today. Like, let's just
Mm-hmm.
be honest. Like, there's no Facebook Live. There's minimal podcasts, but there wasn't this ability to follow the journey as it was happening. So I did it again the second time to really bring that message of empathy home, to show people what I go through as during this experiment. And during that experiment, we talked about this, but I gained 62 pounds over the course of 4 months. Had some cool little experiments built into it where I did like, keto, dirty keto for a week, and dirty paleo, and dirty vegan, dirty vegetarian.
Mm.
Gained a lot of weight on each of those diets, and it was really, really interesting experiment. And then here we are today. We'll kind of talk about how the journey back to fit went as a 40-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So obviously you were successful in your journey back. As I can see when we were
Yeah,
recording last time, I think we were like right in the first maybe 2 months in, I think it was.
yeah.
So you're pretty far along in that sense. But before we get into the back to fit part, is there anything overall that you've noticed from your previous fit to fit journey 10 years ago to the one this time? Was there anything that was harder, easier, anything that stood out? I'm just curious.
Yeah. As far as the gaining weight part goes, you mean?
Both
Or
both
just in
sides, just
general?
overall,
Okay.
yeah, just in general.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest things that I noticed was how quickly my body was able to recover. Because this time around, I had to be on top of stretching and foam rolling and all that stuff to recover from my workouts. Because I could tell there's a difference in my body's ability to recover. And when I was 30, I feel like my body recovered so much quicker. I didn't really have aches and pains. I didn't have like a tight back, and we could talk about how I got a herniated disc at the end of this journey that was put me in the most pain I've ever been in my life. And so there, I think that was the biggest difference from a physical perspective. Mentally and emotionally, this journey was way more emotional because I feel like I'm a different version of myself versus back then. I was in a different place. First time around, I was married, very religious. This time around, I was divorced and not religious. So I've had some big life transitions, and so my emotional awareness is different than what it used to be. And so this time around, the emotions were a lot higher and a lot lower. Like the highs were really high, but the lows were really low. But it gave me a whole new understanding on the topic of emotional eating, and that's what I would say the biggest differences are from the first journey to this journey.
Hmm. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I definitely want to dive into that as well.
Sure.
Just to start off with the nutrition side of things, I want to kind of go through nutrition and exercise and mindset and kind of dive into those different areas with your back to fit journey. So overall, because you said you gained 63 pounds, right, in 4 months? And
62.
then how many,
Mhm.
62. And then how
Yeah.
many months did you have to lose that 62 pounds?
Four
4.
months.
Okay.
So same kind of
So,
format. Yeah.
okay, cool. So did you, like, going into the 4 month fat loss phase or cut or whatever we want to call it, the weight loss phase, did you have any, like, did you reverse engineer like your time frame, knowing, because for example, I work with a lot of clients, and if we're looking to, especially if there's like a certain amount of weight, so you had 62 pounds to lose, right? Did you look and say, okay, I have 4 months to do this, let me reverse engineer to kind of how much I need to lose per week and kind of monitor that? Or did you do any type of like reverse engineering in that sense for, how much you had to consume and all of that? Or did you kind of just go into it and see what happened?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was a little bit of both. Like I did definitely had
Okay.
to reverse engineer. To lose 62 pounds in 4 months is not easy to do. So I had to, look, but I also had to be flexible too, to where I can't just
Hmm.
be super rigid and be like, all right, this is the exact amount of like calories and macros I have to have per day. And if I'm over or under, then it's the end of the world, right? I try not to get too attached to those numbers, but I did have to have an idea of like, all right, well, I got like, 20 pounds to lose in 5 days. How am I gonna do this, right?
Hmm.
But there was times where I was ahead of pace, and there was times where I was behind pace. And there were some things that I had to tweak along the way to either speed things up, and I didn't really slow things down necessarily. Um, but maybe like I had, a little bit extra calories here and there if I was like, okay, I'm ahead of pace. But yeah, so yes, I did have to look into all of that and say, okay, over the course of 4 months, I have to lose X amount per week. Okay, how am I going to do that based on my calories and my macros? And so yes, there was like a formula for
Hmm.
me to kind of follow along the way. But obviously things look awesome on paper, but in the real
Yeah.
world, it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you chatted about tracking. So did you track your calories, macros throughout the entire time? Like what did you use to do that if you did?
Yeah, so I just use MyFitnessPal. It's pretty simple, pretty easy, and I
Hmm.
did track my calories and my macros for the most part throughout the entire journey, both gaining weight and losing weight. I also tracked my my strain level on my Whoop app, which
Okay.
is awesome, and my sleep, my recovery. Tracked my blood sugar levels. Not sure if you can see that, or I can't twist my arm right
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
My blood sugar levels as well to kind of show how my blood sugar response was to the food, and then I also tracked
Hmm.
my blood work.
Gotcha. And did you notice any like overall takeaways from, I mean, I guess we can go into each one, but in terms of, actually, I'm going to save this question for when we go into
Yeah.
the different
Okay.
diet protocols, because I know
Sure.
that you went through some different diet protocols in terms of when you gained weight and then also lost weight, like you talked about keto, vegetarian,
Mhm.
all that. So I do want to dive into that. But before we do, in terms of, you mentioned, if you were kind of ahead of schedule, you had a little bit more calories here and there. Did you utilize any type of like calorie cycling throughout the week, or carb cycling, or fasting, or anything like that as more of like an adherence tool to help you adhere to your intake? Or did you have any special strategies in that regard?
Yeah. So the first, as far as nutrition goes, the first month was more of a keto adaptation phase. So it's pretty strict keto. It was a whole foods approach. Pretty standard 70-25-5 was kind of the protocol that I followed: 70% fat, 25% protein, 5% carbs. And yeah, if I had more time, like I could have transitioned like myself, to get myself off of the sugar cravings, because those are intense, and I remember them being intense
Hmm.
from the first journey. Going into it this time, I was like, okay, I know it's going to be intense, but I can do it because I've done it once before. But it's freaking hard. It really is, to kind of just go cold turkey, no more carbs, especially like unhealthy carbs, because it really does become a drug where your body just have to go through these withdrawal symptoms. And it does suck. Like the first 2 weeks are really hard because you're hungry. You're going from 7,000 calories to 2,000 calories, and your body's response from a chemical reaction perspective, from cinnamon toast crunch to broccoli, it's not the same chemical reaction in your brain. Like you don't get a dopamine hit when you eat broccoli, right? But you do if you eat something sugary. And so that's really hard, because your body does kind of go through these withdrawal symptoms where your body kind of fights back. It's like, hey, where's our drugs? Like we want the high that we've had for the past 4 months. And now, so I was like, hungry, grumpy, moody. The food also, your taste buds adapt and adjust. And so the taste of the food is not as good. And so this is why I think so many people struggle to make a transition to a healthy lifestyle, because they've been conditioned to eat these processed foods for so long. And then now all of a sudden it's like, all right, here's your meal plans, eat whole foods. It's like, okay, yeah, we know we're supposed to do that, but it's not exciting. It's not fun. Like your body doesn't respond the same way, but it does adjust. It did get easier after about the 2 to 3 week period, is where, okay, if you can get through those 2 to 3 weeks, it does get easier. Your body adapts and feels more energetic, and enjoys the food a little bit more, and maybe it tastes better to you as time goes on. So, I'm trying to think, did that answer your question? I think it did. If not, let me know.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. So you said the first kind of few weeks was the keto adaptation phase. So so
Yes.
you went pretty strict keto in the beginning, and then as you kind of went throughout the four
Yeah.
months, you tried different things. Can you kind of bring us through
Yeah.
that? And
So the first 30 days is a strict keto protocol: 70-25-5, no cheat meals, right? Just pretty strict, no alcohol either. And then month two was where I kind of did my diet experiment, but on the healthy side. So I did, obviously healthy keto for the first 4 weeks, and then I went into a clean version of paleo, which is more of a whole 30 approach. I would say it wasn't strict whole 30, but it did, a whole foods paleo approach. More, I would say, keto-ish, is a keto version of paleo, for that first week. And then I went to a clean version of vegan, so no Oreos this time around. And then I went to like a healthier version of vegetarian, and I did that for like the next 4 weeks, right? And so that was phase two of my journey, and that was something that I told people, like, look, you don't need to do what I'm doing. I'm doing this part for my experiment, because I had thousands of people sign up to join me on the journey back to fit. So I have people doing my exact meal plans. And so during
Mhm.
the paleo, vegan, vegetarian, I was like, look, if you guys want to stay keto, it's not going to hurt you to stay in this keto adaptation phase for month two. Like for 60 days, being strict keto is definitely not going to hurt you. But I had to do the paleo vegan vegetarian thing just because I promised people I would do that, and then do my blood work, of course, before, during, and after all that. And then
Hmm.
phase three was more of a cyclical ketogenic diet. So the reason I wanted to teach people about the cyclical keto, which was mostly either, I think it was 6 days on, 1 day off for the first 2 weeks, and then the next 2 weeks were 5 days on of keto, 2 days off. So high carb, low fat on those other days, on those non keto days. And I love cyclical keto. That's for me like more of my maintenance phase. It's more my sweet spot where
Hmm.
80 to 90% of the time I'm keto and it's just easier. My body responds really well. But then on the weekends, I could have pancakes with my daughters, or we could go out and have like, I have rice with my meal, or add in some fruits on those high carb, low fat days. And I actually feel really good with that protocol as far as maintenance goes. I
Hmm.
love the way I feel on that. And then the phase four was more of a targeted ketogenic diet approach where you're adding in carbs strategically pre and post workout, around 20 grams of carbs pre and post workout. And the form of what type of carbohydrate you use is totally up to you. You could use things like maltodextrin, which is a quick, fast digesting sugar it'll spike your blood sugar for sure. But sometimes I'll do fruit or potato or sweet potato. Like 20 grams isn't a ton, but it's enough to give you that bump for your workout, which gives you this boost in energy where you can push yourself. You can get more out of your workouts using a targeted ketogenic diet approach. So for athletes or people that want to, maybe are stuck in a plateau, that want to push themselves a little bit harder in the gym and get more results from their workouts, the targeted ketogenic diet is great for that. And then I would say the last week or so, I was a little bit behind schedule, and so I had to switch it up and go to a lower fat, low carb, high protein approach to get that last little bit of fat off. And that's just something that I use to, get, like I said, the last little bit of fat off. And it sucks. It's not fun. I'll be totally honest with you. Like, yeah, you look great for the camera. You look great on stage. Like a lot of people use that protocol,
Hmm.
but life is miserable during those times because the calories are low, the cravings are super intense. You're not getting, hardly any healthy fats or carbohydrates, and so
Hmm.
super boring. We're talking about like turkey with mustard and chicken breast with mustard, like everything with mustard to give it some flavor, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of the approach that I used during the 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So do you feel like, because the last 2 weeks you were talking about, the bland kind of more like bro diet, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You were kind of, in the sense prepping for like, what, a, like a photo shoot or like whatever it may be, right?
yeah.
So do you feel like once you got to that, the last day and your photo shoot day, that was obviously at your leanest, and you probably didn't feel, like you said, that great. Did you, since then, like that leanest part, are you still, like maintaining that, or have you gained a little bit back since that, last day? I'm just curious, and the reason I ask this question is because a lot of people, like even for me, when I went through like my photo shoot prep, like you said, those last 2 to 3 weeks like absolutely sucked, and like, yeah, you're gonna look great for the camera and get leaner, but like that wasn't sustainable for me over the long term. Like I had to gain a little bit back to be, healthy and to feel good. So I'm just curious with you, if you went through any of that. um
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's definitely not sustainable for me. It kind of turned me off to trying to be that lean. Like I get we're trying to, look good for a photo shoot or look good on stage. And I think it gives people this, because I kind of went back and forth, like, should I do this or should I not do this? Because I wanted to hit my goal. I want to show people like, look, I can do hard things and you can do hard things too. And I want to hit my goal of getting to this weight to kind of show people I got back to fit. But then I kind of
mhm.
went back and forth, like, is that showing people, is that a healthy perspective to have? Like, hey, you can do this too. But I also wanted to be very transparent and tell people, like, look, this sucks. Like, this is what I'm doing. You can do it too, but I promise you, it does not bring more happiness into your life. So yes, after that, I went had a huge, like, pizza and crumble cookies and sushi, and but if you look at me now, like I'm still pretty lean. Like, yes, I'm at
Mhm.
a healthier body fat percentage, probably closer to like 10, 12%, maybe even more. I'm living here in Hawaii. It's a little bit harder, I'll be honest with you, but I feel good. I feel healthy. I feel happy with my relationships. I don't have to be like oh, I can't have that. I'm gonna eat my turkey and mustard while you guys have your, shoyu chicken and your lao lao and your malasadas and all kinds of good food out here in
Yeah.
Hawaii. So it's like I choose to kind of find that happy balance for me, and that's what I tell people. Like, it are you going to be happier with this body and sacrificing so much to get there? Maybe some people really love that, but I would say
Hmm.
for most people, like, probably not. So find what your happy balance is, because maybe you at 15% body fat isn't a happier version of yourself. Yeah, you might look good for Instagram, but are you really happier? Like, that's what people need to figure out, is they think they want this body that they see on Instagram. They think they want to like look that way, but to look that way, here's what you got to do. And it's like, oh, well,
Hmm.
shoot, is that really going to make me happier? Probably not for most people. And so that's what I try and tell people is like, okay, go for it, see what it feels like. And then if that's really what brings you happiness, then do it. Cool. I'm all for that. But if not, then let's find what your sweet spot is. Let's find, maybe it's like 17% or 18%, and
Hmm.
that we can live life and still have fun. But then also still look good. But maybe you're not like that 4 or 5% body fat that's shredded all the time and is unrealistic to maintain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I completely agree with everything you said. It's one of those things where, yeah, you can, if you have a specific goal and you want to like do hard things, like, right, like doing hard shit makes you, more resilient and feel accomplished and all of that. Like that's totally fine. But realize that for most people, sustaining a photo shoot look or whatever it may be is just for most everybody, it's not realistic unless you're like
Yeah.
super, super, genetically blessed. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I agree with that. So I did want to ask about, because you mentioned you were monitoring your blood sugar and with using your Whoop band and all of that. Did you notice anything, especially with blood sugar? I'm just curious. Did you notice anything going from more of that strict keto into more of the cyclical or targeted keto? Did anything happen with your blood sugar response, or were you pretty kind of like
Mhm.
already like more metabolically flexible in the sense that it wasn't really doing much there?
Yeah, I would say I was still pretty metabolically flexible. Even during my journey, like of eating all that junk food, I would get huge spikes in blood sugar, but pretty quickly, within an hour or two, it'd come back down to healthy levels. So that's one thing I talked to my doctor about. He's like, you're really blessed. Like, you have good genetics, that your body's ability to take this abuse. And I think most people's bodies are resilient and they can take some abuse, right? Really helped me, even if I was doing cyclical keto and those high carb, low fat days where I would add in rice and potatoes and fruits. My body's response was still pretty decent, where my blood sugar would get up to like around 150 or so. But then pretty rapidly we would come back down to 80 or so, and kind of rest there between 80 and 100. But I do notice that if I get constant spikes like throughout the day, like if like when I was doing vegan or vegetarian, I'm more sluggish, I'm more tired, my brain's more fatigued. So I would feel sleepier, like needing to take a nap. Now with healthy vegan vegetarian, which was a whole foods approach, I wouldn't get as big of spikes, right? But I would have to eat more frequently. And that's one thing I noticed is like keto or paleo versus vegan vegetarian for me was like I needed 3 main meals, but I also needed snacks in between, just because I couldn't stay full for very long, eating,
Hmm.
a pretty high amount of carbohydrate, even if it's from fruit and potatoes. And that's just my own personal anecdotal experience, but I think most people can relate to that, to where, eating 6 meals a day, for me, I don't like, just because it does cause more digestive issues. For me personally, I like eating twice a day for the most part, and I feel that's pretty sustainable for me. Eating 6 meals a day is just a lot, not a lot of
Yeah.
food. I love food, but to feel hungry 6 times a day and feel the need to have to eat, these smaller meals throughout the day, was one of the things that isn't really sustainable for me in the long run.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And did you, kind of going back to the different approaches, did you change up your protein at all when you were
Mm.
going through the different ones?
Good question. So for the vegan vegetarian, I worked with some other influencers in the space that kind of designed the meal plans for me, and the protein was still pretty high. But in order to get, 100, I think it was like 120 grams of protein was my goal. You had to get a lot of carbohydrates in, because especially on vegan, you're getting, beans, lots of like legumes to get that protein up, and
Yeah.
Probably, and I think I did have to supplement with like a vegan protein shake, which is fine. Um, but I just can't do too much of that because a lot of the pea protein stuff, even me, I have my own brand of supplements and I have a vegan protein with pea protein, but one scoop a day is kind of my limit. But yeah, having to get the protein around 120 grams, it was pretty similar to the keto and
Hmm.
paleo days. I would just say it's harder to get in that much protein without also taking a lot of carbs.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So 120 seems pretty on the lower end for protein. So
Hmm.
what was your goal for when you first start? Obviously, also it depends on your body weight, right? So like
Yeah.
as you lost weight, things change a little bit in terms of protein needs. But in terms of like when you were more of the keto approach, what was your protein intake like there? I know you said like the percentages, but in terms of grams, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it was still around the 120 grams. Like I don't, so when
Okay.
I do keto, I don't do super high protein except for, okay, so here's the thing. When you're looking to lose 62 pounds of fat in 4 months time, with a ketogenic approach for the most part, like for me, 120 grams is something that I think is sustainable for me.
Okay.
But here's the thing: after I lost the weight, after Back2Fit, I lost the weight, right? Um, I wanted to put on some more muscle mass because here's the thing: I looked lean at the end, but I wasn't very strong. And so afterwards, I did a Back for More program, which is a muscle building phase, and I bumped it up to 175 grams of protein, and I kind of maintained that ever since I lost that weight. And that way I can lift heavier. Because here's the thing: if I had more time to lose 62 pounds, I probably would have done it more strategically, where I had some phases of high protein, maybe even some higher calorie, hypertrophy phases to build some lean muscle mass,
Hmm.
and then allow my body to be able to burn fat more efficiently down the road. But for me, the way I structured it was like, okay, I got 4 months to basically be in a caloric deficit the entire 4 months, which is not fun for your body. It's pretty
Yeah.
stressful for your body. But like if I had a year to lose 60 pounds, I probably would have done it more strategically, where I had like higher protein days or higher protein phases where I put on some lean muscle mass. But for it just depends on the
Hmm.
individual. So that's what I
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, that makes total sense. And how much do you weigh right now?
I don't know. I haven't really weighed myself. If I had to
Or
take a
like, what
guess,
do you hover around?
probably 190. I'm probably close to 195. I feel like I put on a little bit of size since I did my fit to fat to 40 journey.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to like put you on the spot.
No,
I was
that's
just
okay. I
curious in
really don't
terms
weigh
of like,
myself.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and we can get into that too in terms of
yeah,
when we talk about some mindset stuff. But I was just curious in terms of because you mentioned 175 grams of protein, so I was just kind of like trying to,
yeah,
put that together with your body weight and grams per pound and all of that. So
yeah,
okay, cool. That makes sense. So kind of getting more into the exercise side of things and how that, like what your approach was for that over the course of the Back2Fit. Cause I know with your, the gaining, well, not gaining, I don't want to
yeah.
say gaining because when people hear gaining, they think like a muscle building phase. So when you, with your,
Back.
fit to fat, yeah, your fat
Yeah.
gaining, your exercise was like non-existent. It was just like 10-minute walks a day, right?
No,
Or
zero
something.
walks per day.
Oh, 0 walks a day. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So
zero
non-existent.
walks. Yeah, non-existent pretty much.
Okay. And then, so what was your approach going into the Back2Fit in terms of your like lifting, cardio, steps, all that jazz?
Yeah, so the first week or so was just walking, like just walking and stretching, just kind of prepping my body for movement again. And then from there, when it did start, it was very basic body weight exercises, but they were like 20-minute workouts, very yeah, mostly body weight exercises, high intensity, so kind of like 20-minute AMRAP or something like that, where the goal is to kind of move your body for 20 minutes. Well, even if it's super slow, like just moving your body for 20 minutes, 20-minute AMRAPs, and then that was 3 days a week. So like a lower body day, so maybe squats and lunges and um, bridges and and then the other days were like push-ups and pull-ups, obviously modified because I couldn't do all those. And then Tuesdays, Thursdays were cardio days, mostly with intervals, so high intensity interval cardio training is what I did on those days. And then Saturday and Sunday were days off. and then from there progressively added more weight, added more intensity. As I lost the weight, had more energy, it was easier to move, I wasn't as sore. I kind of upped the intensity every 2 weeks. I switched up my workout protocol, so I never really got used to the same workout, but it kind of followed that format of 3 days of resistance training, more of a superset or interval training on those days, and then 2 days of a hit cardio, and then Saturday and Sunday I took off. But those were like active recovery days, so I could do yoga, went hiking, went for a walk, something staying active on those two
Hmm.
days off. And literally, I followed that protocol for the entire 4 months. So
Awesome.
people
And
doesn't think like, oh yeah, you worked out 3 times a day and you spent the night in the gym and you worked out 5 hours a day. It's like I don't I wanted to show people that this is a lifestyle that can be sustained. This isn't something super
Mm,
extreme where you have to work out 3 times a day to look like this. It can be something that's sustainable.
got it. Got it. And would you say like that you noticed, because I know you mentioned you noticed you lost like did you lose a little bit of muscle mass at the end, or from when you started off?
Yeah, slightly. There wasn't a huge drop off. I would say maybe 5 to 10 pounds. Well, I guess that's huge, kind of depending on who you ask. But yes, because to lose 62 pounds in 4 months is kind of a faster pace, and of course
Hmm.
you might sacrifice this, and only 120 grams of protein. You're probably going to sacrifice a little bit of lean muscle mass. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, yes, I got back to fit. I lost the weight. My body fat percentage was, well, I won't talk about my body fat percentage because the device I use probably isn't very accurate, because I went from like
Hmm.
8.5% to 4.5%. And I was like, I'm definitely not 4.5% body fat, but maybe because
Yeah.
I was dehydrated that day or something, like it's just not that accurate, but it is what it is. Um,
Yeah.
but I looked pretty lean towards the end as well. But was I stronger? No way. It took me, I feel like I'm just now getting back to that, but I did have a little bit of a setback towards the end. I
Hmm.
had a herniated disc about 3 weeks, probably happened about 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks before the end of my journey. And then on the last day of my journey, if you saw my live weigh-in, I was in so much pain. Like standing up was excruciating, and I had to sit down halfway through my live because I just couldn't take the pain anymore. I had to sit down, and people probably thought I was going to pass out because I didn't talk about my herniated disc. I didn't talk about my injury. I kind of just, wanted to get an MRI to figure out what the pain was from.
Hmm.
So, anyways, that was another thing that happened, but I was able to
Yeah.
kind of push through and modify. And then since then, I've had to work with physical therapists and chiropractors to figure out, okay, like what can I do and what can't I do? And it's been a very humbling process, but I've been able to kind of focus on the things I can do.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Um, that's something I talk about a lot too, like with injuries, focusing on, doing the things you can do and getting away from, I can't do this, I can't do this, and then how that messes with your psyche and all that.
Um,
So, I had one other. In terms of your workouts, like when you were more strict keto versus cyclical versus
mm,
targeted, what did you notice as you were incorporating a little bit more carbs for maybe like those high intensity exercises? Did you feel better doing those? Did you notice performance
yeah.
differences?
Yeah, for sure. Carbs are an amazing fuel source, right? Like it's our bodies, it's like jet fuel. Like especially once you're keto adapted and getting carbohydrates out of your system and just running off ketones for a while, and then adding carbs is like jet fuel. It really is a performance enhancement. So yeah, the vascularity you get, increase in blood flow, like you feel fuller and you feel that increase in energy. It's a different kind of energy glucose is. And so yeah, I love
Hmm.
the way I felt on those cyclical keto days, especially on Monday and Tuesday when I would still have that glucose in my system. Like yeah, you can
Yeah.
push yourself a little bit harder. Same thing with a targeted ketogenic diet. That's why it's great for glycolytic type of workouts like jujitsu or CrossFit or something high intensity, where your body can actually use that glucose pretty effectively. And so yeah, I definitely think of carbohydrates, glucose are a performance enhancer.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I, the reason I asked that question is because the big part of this whole podcast and with metabolic flexibility is with the goal to be able to use carbohydrates as efficiently as possible for when it's needed. And using that to your advantage versus, always running off of higher carbs, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and bringing your body through that, keto process for a little bit, but not always have to like stay there forever, right? So, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with too with keto in general is just, they see the benefits and they get the benefits and they feel so good, and maybe they lose a bunch of weight and then they just don't know how, or they're scared to like bring carbs back in, and it's just like this kind of whole fear and carb phobia. Did you experience any of that when you started reintroducing them, or you kind of been through it enough that you were just like,
Yeah.
I know this is beneficial and I'm not scared of it?
Yeah, because I'm more like you. I've experimented with it before, so I already know how it works. But I think some people, yeah, they find this new fuel source that they love, the way their body feels, and then they're afraid that if they don't have that, then they're going to, lose all their gains. They're going to lose all their progress. So I think it was me kind of educating people, like, look, I'm doing this. Like, I'm giving you permission to do this too. It's okay. Carbs are not the enemy, and so but it's hard because people become dogmatic about it and they become so excited about this new fuel source that they discovered, and they're afraid to lose that, right? They think, oh, if I eat
Hmm.
carbs and that's bad, like, ketones good, carbs bad. And it really is, frustrating for people like you and I trying to educate people, like, no, that's not what we're trying to teach you. Like, yeah, ketones are amazing. Get keto adapted. Like, do that 100%. Feel, how amazing it feels to be in a state of ketosis, but then also know how to use carbohydrates and ketones strategically for the benefits of your goals and your lifestyle and what you're trying to do. And then I think once you overcome that fear, you can realize, oh, I have both these fuel sources to pull from, and you use them whenever I want to. Because like right now, I'm not 100% keto. I'm more of like the higher protein, still not a ton of carbs, like maybe 75 grams to 100 grams of carbs per day. But it's awesome for strength and, putting on some muscle mass. And I love the way my workouts are feeling. But, do you need being strict ketosis all the time? No, I'll probably go through a phase later on this year where I'll go back into strict keto for 30 to 60 days and, cycle in and out. And I love the way my body feels on that. But it's just helping people educating them and helping them overcome that fear.
Absolutely, absolutely. Makes total sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
exactly.
love, yeah, and I love, just getting that message out there a little bit more, because I feel like a lot of people are just like still, especially people listening to this podcast, are just still stuck in that, keto, 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 like carbs are bad, and
Yeah.
so we just need to, continue to push that message. So I appreciate that. Kind of getting a little bit away from the physical stuff. So in terms of mindset and, your mentality throughout the fat loss phase, was there anything that because I know that you're big into, meditation and, having those stress management routines and things like that. Is there anything specific that you implemented in terms of a, stress management perspective on a daily basis to keep your mind in a good place?
Yeah. So what I had people do from the very beginning, even that week long of prep week before we started exercise, was a list of about 6 or 7 things that have nothing to do with weight loss. And some of those things included making your bed every single day. It's a mental discipline thing. It trains your brain to do something every single day. And that's one thing you can be perfect in. Even if you don't eat perfectly that day or you don't get your workout in that day, being disciplined with something like making your bed is awesome. And then from there, taking a cold shower, which sucks. But transformation really has to do with training your mind to become comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And a cold shower is a perfect test to train your mind to become comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation. So freezing cold water sucks. Your body kind of tenses up. Your natural reaction is fight or flight. And if you can learn to slow your breathing down and relax and realize that you're not going to die, it's going to be okay. It's only 60 seconds. And then from there, you can build up, 90 seconds, 120 seconds. But if you can train your mind to become comfortable in that uncomfortable situation, then that can carry over and transfer over to things like maybe feeling hungry for a little bit, which is uncomfortable, but then just saying, hey, we got this. We can get through this. We've done uncomfortable things. Or doing it during a workout when your muscles are burning and you're and sore and you're sweating and you're huffing and puffing. Like, that's a very uncomfortable situation to be in. But now you can calm your mind down and say, it's okay. We don't need to quit. We just keep going. It's going to be over soon and we'll be okay. So that kind of stuff really helps to help people with the mindset shift that needs to happen. so that the big stuff becomes easier. If you can tackle the mental and emotional stuff, then the physical stuff becomes so much easier. So meditation, same thing, 5 to 10 minutes every single day, positive affirmations, a gratitude list, and then going for a walk. 20-minute walk minimum every single day, whether it's raining, snowing. Like I lived in Utah at the time, so it was freezing cold. But doing that discipline those things every single day, yeah, those things aren't going to get you six pack by any means. It's not going to help you really lose weight, but it's going to help you be able to do the physical stuff so much easier if you can train your mind to become comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. In terms of sleep, I know that you struggled a lot with sleep
Yeah.
in the first part of your journey. Did you do anything in particular to make sure that you were maximizing your sleep? I feel like sleep is just so underrated when it comes to like a fat loss phase. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you did specifically, or did it just get better as you lost the weight and as you cleaned up your diet?
A little bit of both, right? Like as you live a healthier lifestyle and you cut out, the sugar and the alcohol like around bedtime and these blood sugar spikes, naturally your body's probably going to be able to sleep easier because your belly's not full of food and having to digest food all
Hmm.
night long. And then obviously, for me, it was things like, whether it's blue light blocker glasses or just getting off of screens like an hour before bedtime was huge for me. And not having any alcohol at nighttime is awesome for sleep. It's probably one of the best things you could do. But then also, like I said, getting off screens, reading books instead of being on a screen was also very, very helpful too.
Hmm.
Let's see, also supplementation, magnesium, zinc really helped with my sleep, I've noticed. um, let's see what else. I did use CBD during certain parts of it. CBD is one of those things where it's like, okay, I do notice a difference with my sleep, but I also cycle off of it every couple months too, because I feel like it's kind of diminishing returns if I just get accustomed to it and use it all the time. But like I would use it for a month or two and cycle off of it for a month, and then it kind of seemed to pick back up. Um,
Hmm.
and then that's pretty much it that I would do for sleep. But yeah, sleep, I agree, is one of the most important things you could possibly do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm just curious, you said supplements, so magnesium, zinc, and then a little bit of CBD. Anything else? I know a lot of people tend to turn to melatonin as their
Mhm.
go-to sleep supplement, and we know there can be some issues with that. Do you have any take on
No,
that?
the only time I use melatonin is when I'm switching time zones. Like right here in Hawaii is about 3 hours behind Pacific time, 6 hours behind Eastern time. So when I go to different time zones and I'm like, all right, now it's time to go to bed here in this time zone, I'll take some melatonin.
Mm.
But melatonin is one of those things I try not to take on a daily basis. I feel like there's confusing, research out there about like, oh, it's good for you, it's bad for you, it's good for you, it's bad for you. And so when that kind of stuff happens, I'm like, all right, let's just stay somewhere in the middle where occasionally I'll use it if I feel like I need to kind of reset my circadian rhythm. But I
Hmm.
try not to use it every night.
No, yeah, that makes total sense. I love that, just using it when you have to reset in time zones and to help with jet lag a little bit. I think it is something
Mhm.
that can be, over abused. And I know, at least from the most recent research that I've seen, taking like, I believe it was more than 1 milligram, can actually, if you continue to do more than 1 milligram on a consistent basis, it tends to like lessen the production of your own melatonin. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of, I think the most common dose is like 3 to 5 to 10 milligrams of melatonin, and people
Yeah.
are taking that like every single night, and then they have to just continue to take more and more, and then it
Yeah.
stops their own production. So, yeah, with melatonin, I tend to stay on the lower end if I need it,
Yeah.
and I think time zones is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Um, so cool. I do have one kind of last overarching question for you.
Sure.
So, what would your like top 3 tips be for someone who has 60 plus pounds to lose?
Yeah. It's a really good question. I say the first thing is mindset, like learning to shift your mind. Because I could give you a new meal plan, a new diet, a new workout, like new supplements that are going to help for sure. But unless you know how to conquer your mind, none of that's going to last for a long period of time. So the first thing is get your mindset right. And so the list of things that I mentioned will be a great place to get started. Even if you did those things every single day for 30 days and then tried a new diet and a new workout program, it's going to be so much easier if you get your mindset right first and foremost. So I would say The making of your bed, cold shower, meditation, positive affirmations, gratitude list, and just going for a walk every single day will be a great place to start because it makes the physical journey so much easier. From there, I would say look to someone to be accountable to, whether it's your spouse, a friend, an online community. Staying accountable to someone is definitely going to be key because if you're just doing it by yourself, it's so easy to quit because no one's going to really know. So workout partner of some type. And then I would say um, the third thing would be to find what works best for you. So you and I are big proponents of the ketogenic diet, and that works great for a lot of people. But maybe for some people, that's just not doable for whatever reason. Maybe for them, it's a different type of diet, and that's okay. Find what works best for you because you know your body better than anyone else, and find what works best for you so that it makes that lifestyle change so much easier instead of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I just want to make sure I had the physics right. So anyways, yeah, find what works best for you. And I would say that would probably be the best three things to do to get started.
Yeah, I love that. I think adherence is, I always say that that's the biggest thing, because if you can't be adherent to a certain thing for, a consistent period of time, because consistency and adherence, go hand in hand, then you're just gonna, even if you lost the weight, like you can just gain it all right back if you don't have those, lifestyle things in place to be able to maintain that. So I think it's cool that you tried out a bunch of different things, and like obviously you went through, this before, and it just, it's fine to try things out, but I think at the end of the day, you need to just find, what works best for you as an individual and for your particular goals too, and your health and markers and all that too. So I love that. One other question I did have, just to piggyback off of that, is you kind of mentioned this a lot, like if you had more time to lose the weight, you would do these things differently. So if someone does have 60 plus pounds to lose, would you recommend them taking a little bit more than, 4 months to do it? Or what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, there is no rush. There is no finish line. There's like, you don't need to race to this finish line of like getting there and being done. It's definitely something that can be done over time, because for me, people that try and get through it quickly or push themselves too quickly, they get burned out. Right. Even I felt a little bit burnt out by them, and I'm like, I need a break from this healthy lifestyle stuff. Like I need to like just relax and enjoy life. So I would say, give yourself time and just realize that it's not a race to the finish line. People want instant results, but if you lost like a pound a week, that's 52 pounds over the course of a year. Like that is really good, right? That's great progress. Yeah, you want to lose a pound a day though. People are like, I want to lose it all now. So just play the long game. Realize that the long game is probably going to be healthier and more sustainable for you, for most people, I would say. And so I would definitely recommend that. But, if you do want quick results, there's nothing wrong with that. Just realize that there is no finish line. That's not like a race to a finish line, then you're done, right? It's something that's going to be ongoing no matter what. So maybe you can enjoy that journey a little bit more if you're not in such a rush.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it also comes back to like the individual too. Like if they, some people do really well with faster progress, right? It keeps them, motivated. They're taking action, they're seeing the results, and that's great. And then there's other people who have maybe, and with those people who go, faster, they have to make more sacrifices and make more trade-offs, right? Like, going out to dinner on a Friday night versus, not, right? Those are trade-offs, for the speed of loss that you want to get. And I think it's just going into it thinking about, okay, what are the trade-offs that I'm willing to make in my personal lifestyle, and am I going to be able to stay consistent with this over a period of months or whatever it is? I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people get tripped up on, because in the beginning, it's so easy to be like, yes, I'm going to do this. Like I can do it. And then it's like 3 weeks in, you're like, oh crap. So I think just that's a huge thing. But yeah, I mean, that was super insightful. And I do want to just ask you about, so you're obviously in Hawaii right now, and I'm sad that I missed you. I was there a few months. Was it 2 months ago now?
Yeah, a little over 2, I think.
Yeah, it was like 2 months. I think I was there right when you moved, actually. I remember it was like the same day that you took off to leave Utah. I was taking off from San Diego. But do you want to just tell us like a little bit about why you decided to move back to Hawaii? Is there any? background there?
I'll be quick. So I used to live here in 2015. My family on my dad's side is from this island, and so the stars kind of aligned because I'm a there's a lot of moving parts. There's me, there's my ex-wife, there's our two daughters, there's her fiance, and so the stars aligned for all of us to be able to move out here together, if you will. And I could work from anywhere, so it's just one of those things where it felt right for me to start a new chapter of my life out here. And yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I feel very blessed to be able to live in a place as beautiful as this, and to also have some ancestry on my dad's side and connection to this island.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
And
Thank
so
you.
do you have anything kind of speaking about the future, anything like fun coming up? Like what's next for you, in your
Yeah, for right
journey?
now, I'm just trying to get settled in here in Hawaii and get my girls like started with school. Not a lot, no like crazy experiments that I have planned, but I'll keep you guys posted if I do. Right now, I'm just working on healing my back. It's not 100%. It's probably like 70 to 80%, but it's a lot better than what it used to be. So stay tuned for some things that I have coming up. But right now my main focus is just kind of getting settled in to
Mhm.
this new chapter of my life. So
Yeah. No, I love that. And there's nothing wrong with that too. I think kind of to finish off the biggest thing to kind of realize for a lot of people too is like it's okay to stay at maintenance, right? And
yeah,
maintenance with your body composition, maintenance with your life. Like yes, it's cool to be always pushing yourself for different goals, whether it's physical goals, mental, business goals, whatever it is, but there's nothing wrong with like taking a step back and, just chilling out for a little bit. Like
yeah,
there's no downside of that. Like it's not,
yeah.
you're not going in reverse. You're just kind of hanging out. So that's something that I've been working on too lately is like
Hmm.
not always looking at like the next thing. It's like, all right, let's focus on the now for a little bit and
Yeah.
see what we can get out of this. So I love that. For everybody who doesn't know, do you want to tell us where we can find you, your website, social
Yeah.
media?
Yeah. Super simple. At fit number two, fat number two fit. So fit to fat to fit is the same on all social media handles. It's my website, my book, my podcast, just fit to fat to fit. But thank you, Rachel, for
Awesome.
having me on your podcast. It was a pleasure. Three times. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I will link all of those in the show notes and I'll also link our previous episodes so whoever wants
Okay.
to go back and listen can check those out.
Okay. Thank you,
Awesome.
Rachel.
All right, I'll chat with you soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of MetFlex and Chill. I hope you enjoyed it. It would be awesome if you could give the show 5 stars and leave a review on iTunes. We're trying to get placed in the top 100 health podcasts, and the 5-star ratings and reviews are what can help make that happen. I'll add step-by-step directions for leaving a review in the show notes. I know it's a big ask, but it really helps. Thanks again. See you next time.